Today, Steph and I welcome Steph's client, James, to the podcast. James is a current junior at his high school. He began working with Steph when he was in the 10th grade. And in this episode, he talks about his initial reluctance about educational therapy and his high level of coachability. He shares how his improvement in sleep was and continues to be transformative, and how he learned to make calculated and strategic decisions about efforting. He also talks about how he learned how to study meaningfully, his embracing AI, and his own personal journey in shifting his college expectations and what he wants out of that experience. He also shared, and I quote, "Ask for help so you can stay strong," and his willingness to take that step and embrace educational therapy and embrace working with Steph was the reason for this transformation. If this story resonates with you and you're interested in either having a conversation about yourself or your learner, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at our website. Steph's website is www.myedtherapist.com. My website is www.kappedtherapy.com. Both of our websites, you can sign up for a phone call and chat with us about what's going on in your life and with your learners. Let's dig in.
You want to learn faster, but sometimes working harder is just not the answer. You have to learn smarter. The Educational Therapy Podcast.
Hi, Smarties. Welcome to episode 343 of Learn Smarter, the Educational Therapy Podcast. I'm Stephanie Pitts.
And I'm Rachel Kapp.
And today we have James on the podcast. And James is now my former client.
Oh, great.
Because he graduated out. Say hi, James.
Hello.
Welcome.
So we just met in the hour plus that it took Steph to get her tech together.
It was a terrible.
But it's fine because we're here now. But I've been wanting to ask you questions, but I'm like saving it for when we're on air. So can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, your age, your grade, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm James. I am a junior in high school now, but I started going to ed therapy when I was a sophomore. And it really started because I had trouble getting my work done and I would always procrastinate. And that's when I found Stephanie. So
yeah.
That's when you found Steph or your parents found Steph. Exactly.
Yeah. And you're an athlete. Let's put that in there. So
yeah,
you play a sport and it's a lot of time.
It's a big commitment, and presumably you would have to turn in your work in order to play your sport.
Yeah.
I would love to hear a little bit more about what you first thought of when your parents brought this idea of ed therapy to you.
I was definitely a little hesitant because I'm a stubborn person and I generally have trouble asking for help. So I'd be getting like serious help, going to appointments every week and stuff like that. And at first, when I was brought the idea, I was kind of like, I'm sort of beyond this. Like, I don't need help like that. And then finally, like one week I had a really tough time in school and I was like, oh, I'll just go to the first one. I'll just like see how it is. And I went, and I didn't really know how to feel about the first one, but I told my mom that I'd go to the next one. And I went to the next one and it was actually like pretty helpful for me. So I just told myself I would keep going, and I started to see improvement. And so that's kind of how I got started with it.
Steph, I'm curious, what are your memories of those initial 2 sessions? I love that you don't remember the first one. I know that Steph does, but what were your ideas about it?
He was one of those kids that walked in with his shoulders really high, like a lot of stress. He was very overwhelmed. James is a kid that is very receptive.
You're coachable.
Yeah, he's very coachable.
You're used to being coached. Yeah.
As an athlete. And so he would also implement the things that I would tell him to do. That is what I think why he started to see results immediately and why he started to feel like, okay, I'll go to the next one. I'll go to the next one. Because it was pretty soon after that your mom told me that you came home and you were like, oh, this is really helpful and I really want to continue this. Because I think she did a check-in with you. Like, is this helpful? Are you finding that you want to keep going? And you were like, yes, please.
Yeah.
So what was Steph telling you to do that you were able to see that sort of immediate impact?
So the first like session that we had, the first couple, it was all kind of about like organization, getting organized, like having a plan of what you're going to do when you get home, having all of your subjects in order so that you know like where everything is and you're not wasting time when you're doing it. The first time when I went home and did my homework after one of our sessions, I had a plan of what I was going to do. Instead of going on my phone for a while, I had like a time that I was going to start at, and I started at that time, and I was able to just kind of like get through all of my homework efficiently. And then I had a lot of extra time and I was able to go to bed early. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things coming into this. The first is that one of the big factors was sleep for him. And he wasn't getting enough sleep. It was affecting his school and it was affecting his play, on the field. And he was really bothered by it because he was having a really hard time because he was really tired all the time and wasn't able to give focus where he needed to because he didn't have any power.
The energy.
And that was a big concern for his parents. The other big thing that came into play was also him taking honors everything.
Oh, we're high achieving and an athlete. Got it.
So when we talk about last year, James, last year as a sophomore, you were taking the hardest classes you could, basically. Facts?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And so how many hours of homework were you doing every day?
I would have probably like 3 to 4 hours.
On top of playing several hours of your sport.
Yeah.
So barely time to eat, barely time to breathe, barely time to sleep.
Yep.
The thing that brought about this episode, let's continue with your journey a little bit. And then I want to talk about why I thought it was so important for you to come on and talk about your journey specifically. So after you started noticing a little bit of difference because you had a plan when you got home from school, what do you remember next?
I would say like after I had a plan, I was just able to get more of my work done. I was seeing like great improvements because I was able to get it done. The emphasis on having more sleep was like hugely helpful for me. So like not procrastinating, getting more sleep benefited everything because then I was able to go home and I wasn't just like wanting to go take a nap when I got home, but I had like the energy to get my work done and I had the energy to do all these things. That was probably like the main thing that was like improving after.
For sure. And I think that was always in the forefront of things that we were thinking about for you. Make sure that you were getting enough sleep. But I think also we were talking a lot about how you were approaching tasks because you were doing some homework at 120%, I'm going to call it. And not every homework assignment needed your 120%. And we talked a lot about that. What were the teachers looking for? What was graded and how? Was it complete, not complete, or was it actually a graded homework assignment?
Yeah.
Do you remember talking about that a lot?
Yeah, I do.
I think this is really important for our audience to hear from your perspective because you have a high achieving learner. You're all in on your sport. You want to do well. And for you, that meant putting 120% into every assignment and having to make sort of calculated decisions about where your effort was going to go can be transformative. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'm definitely a kid who likes to do everything to my absolute best effort. But what I was learning is that when I put my best effort into everything, then as an effect, I'm not able to put in all of my effort to other things. So what I learned is that for some smaller assignments that I learned aren't really graded off of how well you do it and just for completion, I put a little bit less effort into those assignments and just got them done. And then when it came time for like big essays or big projects or things like that, I can put way more time into those large, meaningful assignments that are getting graded based off of my actual effort and my actual correctness versus is it completed or is it filled out to its full extent.
That in particular, you had a class last year, you had to annotate everything. And your teacher would look at completeness of being how much you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, how much was on the paper. One of the things that you didn't want to give up was you didn't want to do less because you thought, okay, it's going to help me on the test.
Yeah.
But it was about finding little tweaks for you so that you could do a little bit less, right? So you weren't writing in full sentences. You were doing little symbols instead. I think there were a few times he didn't give you the full credit, but you were okay with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you started seeing you getting the same grade on the test as well, I believe.
Right, yeah.
Right? Very interesting.
Yeah.
So as we started to talk about where you put your effort and how you put your effort in, we also talked a lot about how to study, because that was a big part of your journey, is how to study efficiently when you don't have a million hours to spend. Like, how can you actually study smarter? And we talked a lot about what you're using. You in particular, I've spoken about you on this podcast before because you use AI very well.
Talk a little bit about how you use AI. We're in a place where we're embracing it. And I just want to share a quick story unrelated to you, but I think I told you this, Steph, that I saw on social, someone had used AI to create 3 dinners, 5 meals for $150 from Trader Joe's, and then organize it by section in the store. So they had a shopping list. That blew my mind. And I was like, Steph, you got to do this for the gluten-free stuff. But anyway, talk about sort of you embracing AI and how you are learning.
So I think the first time I ever used AI to like help me study more efficiently, it was when I was in one of my harder classes. And this was a class where we had to take a lot of reading notes. And so a lot of what I would do is I would put the reading into the AI and I would have it summarize the text for me so I could read only the really important information, which I didn't need all of the background stuff that they would talk about otherwise, just the key points. And I would write down those points for my notes. And I would get the same amount of learning and same amount of information that would be relevant for a test or an exam, but I would do it in like maybe a quarter of the time.
Yeah.
To the point where these readings he had, let's talk about these for a second. They were like college textbooks that had such dense reading, and he would have 50 pages to do in a night. I mean, it was crazy.
If you have a physical textbook, how did you get it in the AI? Now I have a technical question.
Find a PDF online because I would say like 90% of textbooks have them. But there's also apps on your phone where you can take pictures of pages and then it converts it into text.
Yeah.
So he just physically didn't have enough time because he was in honors, AP, everything.
And also 50 pages a night is
it was a lot.
Unreasonable. Yeah.
It was hours and hours and hours. So I think you embraced all of that and you started doing all of that on your own and seeing that it was making a huge difference in the amount of time and using your effort wisely, that you could then put in effort in other things elsewhere, and how you studied and what you studied and your essays and all of that.
I do not feel that using AI in that way is cheating. Just so you know, it's still meaningful learning that's happening. Can you respond to anybody who might say like, oh, that's taking a shortcut, which by the way, we embrace. We love a good shortcut. Yeah. But how do you sort of navigate that? Is that tricky for you, or you're just like, no, I'm still learning the information?
So I think it can be really tricky to navigate what's right and what's wrong. But for a lot of teachers, they don't particularly like it because they think it's like cheating. They think it's a shortcut. They want you to do all the tedious reading because that's how it's supposed to be. That's how school is supposed to be.
Yeah, air quotes. Yep.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. For me, if I can learn the same amount of information and I can get it done way quicker, but I can get the same test results on exams and quizzes and other such things, I don't see it as cheating at all. I just think it as a way more efficient way that honestly that schools should kind of adapt to, because there's no reason to be putting kids through that much work if it's extra work. And that's what I kind of found with like my test results, is that I was doing way more work than I needed to, and I was getting the same exact results. And I think schools in general should kind of adapt to that and adapt their thinking in that way.
100%.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what was your next point?
So the next point that I wanted to talk about is as you go through your journey and it starts to become time to choose classes for junior year.
Yeah.
We had a lot of conversations about this, you and I.
Yeah. So when I came to you first with my classes, I was really thinking that I wanted to take harder classes because I was so concerned with college and getting into college and things like that. And how high is my GPA going to be?
Yeah, weighted because you were taking all of the honors and AP. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. But what we talked about is you don't need to give yourself this much stress and this much work. You can find like a couple of classes that you're extra interested in and then pick those to be your harder classes. But it's so much easier and you'll have so much more energy. You'll have so much more time and you have so much more sleep. This year, I picked a couple hard classes and I made the rest of them, I don't want to say easier, but more manageable for me. And I now have time to focus on things like my extracurriculars, which are also going to help me get into college. I have time to focus more on my sport. I have more time for sleeping, get 8 hours every night now versus last year, or maybe when I was getting like 4 to 5. And it's just been hugely helpful to have less workload. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And time to be a kid.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always kept saying to you is I want you to have fun. I want you to be a kid still.
Yep.
You have to enjoy and you have to be able to do the things that you want to do because that's learning too. And we talked a lot about it and your parents were on board with what you wanted to do, right? Which was hugely helpful. And once this school year started, I feel like a huge shift in what you thought you wanted versus what you realized you actually want.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So for my sport, at least, I really thought that I wanted to go play in college and I really wanted to like focus and hone in on that at least. And now my mindset's kind of changed. I kind of want like a different college experience. So from now to like last year, that's been like drastically different and it's changed how I view things as well.
Can you talk about that?
So for classes, at least, I'm definitely more focused on extracurriculars now. So I've gotten a job and stuff like that to help get into college. And I've also like realized that at the end of the day, for me, how much of a difference is going to like this college or that college really going to make for me? You could try your best, get into a really good college and that might be for you, but you don't really know until you're there. So for me, I just want to go somewhere where I think I'm going to be the happiest I can be. And that might not be like an Ivy League or something like that. That might be a lesser school that just has more opportunities for me to enjoy.
I went to a public high school here in LA, but it was extremely college focused. And the only colleges ever discussed were like UCs or Ivy Leagues. Like that's what was pushed. And first of all, Harvard and Yale get very demystified when you meet the people that go there.
Mm-hmm.
And even in life, when you meet people that went there, you're like, really? But the people I know who are unemployed are the Harvard graduates who just like couldn't figure out like the next step. So it's not necessarily, I love that you're like shifting your focus and changing your expectations around making it more pleasurable for yourself.
I'm so proud of him because I think
that's hard. Yeah,
it is. And we really started to look at, we spent some sessions that we were talking about the nitty gritty of how to do this and how to do that when you're studying or doing homework and whatnot. But there were also a lot of sessions where we were talking about the big picture for him and what he wanted and what he wanted his education to look like and how he wanted to go about things. And I graduated you out. And I think you were a little shocked.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, tell us about that. Tell us about that decision. What was that like for you when Steph was like, I think we're done?
I was just assuming that we would just like carry this on and keep going, like keep trying to like just keep me on task. I mean, it was kind of a shock to hear at first, but then took a step back and I was kind of like doing everything that I wanted to do this time last year. Doing my homework on time. I'm doing it early. I'm getting everything done. I'm going to bed early. Like I'm doing everything that we had talked about as goals. And so I think stepping back, I think I realized that I was ready to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to add, and I don't know if Steph has said this to you, but not every student comes in and is immediately amenable and coachable
100%.
to what Steph is sharing or what I'm telling learners to do. Sleep is one of the hardest, trickiest things to get back on track. So you're a little bit of a unicorn in that. But I'm curious, how has family and home life shifted and improved as a result of working with Steph?
And side note, his mom is going to come on the podcast. I talked to her about it.
Great.
So we'll hear her side of things.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Before you answer that, do you have siblings?
2.
Where are you in the order?
Middle. Older sister, younger sister.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right, go ahead.
I would say having more sleep, especially for me, that's like probably the biggest thing for me. It just makes my mood a lot better and it gives me way more energy and I'm just happier in general.
A nicer person, perhaps?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure like I didn't realize it in the moment, but looking back, I've kind of realized that was like really weird. You're not really like yourself. You're kind of just like a zombie talking to people. I was getting like 4 to 5 hours of sleep every night. And I was just going through the motions every single day. I was just doing the same stuff. I was just kind of like not there. And now I'm experiencing everything. I'm talking to my family. Every day I go up and I talk to my mom and dad after school, talk about how my day was, how their day was. And it's been a lot better this year. So
it just makes me so happy. You having enough sleep and just the whole combination of everything let you take a step back and actually think about what you wanted, not just going through the motions, which is the point where you were last year. You were just doing what you thought you should be doing without having any energy to really think about what you actually wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you because, number one, you're in such a great place and you are so successful.
And Steph isn't going anywhere.
No, and he knows that.
You text her, you email her.
Yeah, if it starts to get hard, you just come right back, right? I'm literally down the street. So the whole point of this episode was to talk about your journey, but also because I wanted other kids to hear how your journey really went. And what would you say to the James that walked into my office? Thinking back, the James now, what would you say to the James then?
I would have to say, try. Just go like one more session. Just keep going. It's not embarrassing that you need the help. Everyone needs help. Don't ask for help because you think that you're weak. Ask for help because you want to stay strong. For the most part, I really struggled with, I don't need any help. But looking back, I definitely did. And I'm glad that I got the help.
You needed a coach.
Yep.
The skill sets Steph taught you, they're all skills that we all require, but are never explicitly taught to us. And that's where we step in and we teach you all those things that teachers just assume you know how to do. And then once you get really strong at your skill set, you start to realize like weak executive functioning skills, mainly in teachers, and you see things fall through the cracks and you're like, it would be helpful here. And I'm sure you see that at home too, sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want you to know you're incredible and you're going places for sure. And I can't wait to see.
Ask Steph to write a letter of rec because I think she'd do it.
Or we could ask AI to write it, you know. Yeah. I'm really proud of you for being vulnerable and being willing and sharing your story because other kids are in your position and they need to hear what happens on the other side because the other side feels scary when you don't know. And when you walked in my office that day, you hadn't bought in, which fair enough. But now looking on the other side, if there are other kids that are feeling worried, feeling ashamed, they feel like they should know how to do it, but they don't know how, etc. What would you say to them? What advice would you give to other kids if they were listening?
I would say that like everyone's different. Everyone struggles in their own way. Some kids need different types of help. So if you're worried what someone else is thinking of you, I promise you that they struggle in their own way and that they need help that you probably don't know about. And it's not just you, like everyone. It happens to everyone. Everyone needs help. Everyone asks for help in different ways. And no one's perfect. So if you're not good at something and you need help with it, don't be afraid to ask for help.
I love that.
Love it.
I can't wait to see where your journey takes you. And I'm so proud of you. And no, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So keep going on that journey and I can't wait to watch you. So with that, will you say our signature sign off, which is have a great week, Smarties?
Have a great week, Smarties.
Have a great week.
Have a great week.